Yeah, well, hello and welcome. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much to Apple to open the door for such a lovely evening into such a lovely premises. My Apple iPhone feels so much at home here. I'm also especially pleased to welcome you to a panel which I think everybody of you might have already have a personal relationship. I actually checked. I have a relationship with all of them in a professional way, of course. Like for instance, this morning I booked my Airbnb for my London trip. I took the DriveNow car to go grocery shopping. My sister called and said, okay, she has the carpooling ticket for her trip this weekend. And I love my Etsy bag I got 2 weeks ago, custom made from Budapest. So, if that sounds familiar to you, you're right here, right now, in the perfect place, because we are going to talk about those 4 companies who make it for us possible to live such an interconnected and fabulous life, full of customized and shared love. But also, of course, all of that has a very serious business component. I did some research this afternoon, and I actually realized that with those 4 people here on the panel, we actually have representatives of altogether of 15 million people worldwide community. So that is like kind of nifty number to start with. I would like to start, of course, ladies first, with the fabulous Karolina Schmidt, who is the country manager of Etsy. Please put your hands together.
Hello.
Hello. Caroline, it's so good to see you again.
Yeah.
We've been knowing each other for a while now, and I've been following you, and I'm especially pleased to also listen to your story, how you actually came to Etsy. But before we go to the interesting part, tell me, Etsy, 2005, everything started. You actually have the biggest share on the 50 million. You have 30 million registered users worldwide.
Yes.
How did everything start? How do you get to such a number?
Well, Etsy began in 2005 with our founder, Rob Kalin, who really believed that there was an opportunity for makers to connect directly with their customers, that you didn't just have to go to a big box store to go shopping, that there's a worldwide community of artisans. And so he had this vision of a marketplace where anyone could come and buy from creative small businesses, and it just grew from there. So if we look at a snapshot of 2013, we sold about $1.3 billion worth of goods, US dollars. We have buyers and sellers in every single country on the planet. And we are continuing to grow in an incredibly robust way to further our mission of a world in which we see a more fulfilling and that's more fulfilling and lasting, and supporting independent creative businesses. So on Etsy, anybody can buy something directly from the person who made it, whether you're sitting in Jakarta or you're sitting in Berlin.
Excellent. So, but also, every company is made by its people. So, I'm really curious, how did you come to Etsy?
Well, first of all, I'm not the country manager anymore. Just a small change. I now actually run Etsy's in-house creative agency, but I first came to Etsy as country manager. And the reason I came to Etsy was that I am personally someone who loves to make things with my hands. I'd been working in the tech community in Berlin, and as much as I love the ones and zeros that make technology whir, it was the opportunity to work at a company that has such a physical manifestation, and also where we see such direct results in people's lives. Almost every single week, I'm able to talk to different sellers around the world whose lives are changed by opening up their own small business on Etsy. The opportunity to work at a company like that was rewarding, and so I joined 2 years ago, and then for the last year, I've been, as I said, running our internal creative agency, and so we manage all of the creative work for every single one of our offices around the world.
Fantastic. And last question, sharing is for you what?
It's an interesting question because at Etsy we are a marketplace, and so we're not sharing goods. People buy things and then they keep them. But I think where sharing really comes into play is amongst our seller community. Etsy would not be successful were it not for the strong relationships that our sellers have with each other, because they understand that together as a global community of makers, they're stronger. And so our sellers are more than happy to share knowledge and their successes with each other. And so we found the best way to actually onboard sellers and the best way for sellers to become successful business people is to learn from each other. And we have a lot of different tools on the platform that help our sellers do that. But it's really about the sharing of knowledge that has built Etsy to the business that is today.
Thank you very much, Karolina Schmidt. So, now we have the first man on stage, and I really hope I'm going to pronounce your last name. I'm going to try it, and help me. Christopher Cederstock from Airbnb. Hi.
How's it going?
I think we are waiting for you have brought something. You have brought
Yeah,
a
brought a
little
little video.
video.
I hope we can play it.
Thank you very much for that little present. So, are you renting out your apartment on Airbnb as well?
Currently not, no. I'm traveling a lot on Airbnb though. I spent the better part of my career at Airbnb traveling back and forth between our headquarters in San Francisco, which you saw in the video, and Hamburg and Berlin. So I stay typically between 160 and 200 nights a year on Airbnb, actually with various hosts, mainly San Francisco and across Europe.
So the fact that you now can travel everywhere and there's always somewhere a couch where you can crush, or an entire apartment, entire loft. I've also seen you can rent boats now and like entire castles. I'm gonna do that one day. So like, again, like how did you get to such a huge user space? Like, how did it start? With a couch somewhere in San Francisco?
It actually did, yeah.
Oh.
So Joe and Brian, two of our co-founders, they met at design school in Rhode Island. They both moved to California. Joe moved to San Francisco and Brian to LA. And they decided to start a company. So Brian packed his bags and took his Honda Civic up to San Francisco and started living with Joe. And it happens that they got a rent increase just a couple of weeks after Brian got there. So they were not able to make ends meet, but a design conference was coming to San Francisco. So they got Nate, who Joe knew because they had lived together previously, to build them a very small website where they could put up an airbed and serve their guests breakfast. So they called the company Airbed and Breakfast. And they promoted it through the design blog, and they got a couple of bookings and were able to make ends meet. And that's how the company was started. And I think it's grown across the world, and we're in 192 countries and 34,000 cities. I think we're missing North Korea and Cuba, but we'll get them eventually, I guess. But it's because it's about travel, and people love to travel, and people travel across continents, and they meet people, and then they take the concept back home with them. So for us, we're truly global, and we have guests and hosts all around the world. Over 600,000 listings right now.
Absolutely amazing. And also because like it was an idea born by desperation and not having enough money. So, next time if you're desperate and don't have enough money, look at Airbnb. Maybe there is like the next version out here already. So, but also I'm curious about you, Christopher.
Yeah.
Like, how did you get to, traveling and, having a new couch every day or every week?
So I started Airbnb about 2.5 years ago. I had been involved in the startup scene in Berlin and Munich before then. Originally, I started my career in banking, but that was a terrible job. So I started a company in Munich, and then I moved to Berlin a couple of years later and helped build a couple of companies here in Berlin. And I ended up founding an incubator in Berlin that, when Airbnb was internationalizing, called us and asked them to help with the internationalization. And that's how I got to Airbnb. At first it was a client, but I think week 3, I was pretty sure that this was gonna be it. So I left the old job.
Eventually we get them all.
We do get them all.
Excellent. So, and last question, sharing for you is?
So sharing to me is about trust. It's about trust and family. When I think of sharing, I think back. I moved around a lot when I was a kid with with my parents. While my parents moved around, they took me. And they also took my brother, and we shared everything. I mean, siblings do share everything. But we also shared, aside from toys and bedrooms and friends, we also shared the experience of making new friends and getting into new schools. And that trust and sense of family is what sharing is about for me.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So, round number 3, the fabulous Tobias Helbing von carpooling.com. And I thought, like, I'm going to completely mess up Christopher's surname, but I've actually did yours. I'm so sorry. Was Helbing?
Helbing.
Was it?
It's just
Okay.
Helbing.
See, I just shouldn't have mentioned it, and you wouldn't have noticed.
Yeah.
Well, welcome, Christopher. Before we're gonna interview you, I believe also you have a little video for us.
Yeah, I want to share a video with you as well.
You are actually, carpooling.com is actually the oldest one from the whole round. I mean,
just
really the
realized.
oldest one. I mean, you started in 2001.
Yeah, it's a long time ago, actually.
And you had a different name also.
Yeah, we still have, so the transformation in Germany didn't took place yet, so we're slightly preparing everything. But as most of you know us as mitfahrgelegenheit.de, the international brand is carpooling, and we're entering a global market, and therefore mitfahrgelegenheit.de doesn't work at all. So all the international people there, they can't handle the word Mitfahrgelegenheit. They don't even have a clue what does it mean. Exactly. And Mitfahrgelegenheit was founded in 2001, as you already noticed, and by 3 students in Würzburg. And it was actually a spin-off of a city platform called Vu Wo Was. And the idea was, or actually it was a need of themselves, because they had like long distance relationships and they wanted to travel cheap. And therefore they came up with the idea of Mitfahrgelegenheit and started creating the platform.
Yeah, I remember, I think like in 2005, I was studying and had like one of those like weekend relationships, and I think like in a lot of, I think it probably was your standard user, and I was so grateful. And I've met so many lovely people. I'm still in contact with them.
Right.
So, well, how did you get there? Did you just, went on Mitfahrgelegenheit and the founder was in the car and asked all of the
Almost
job?
like this, actually. Almost. I joined Mitfahrgelegenheit.de in 2004 as a user, actually, yeah. And ended up after my universities and doing some thesis on Mitfahrgelegenheit, and finally applied for a job at the company. And now I'm there for about more than 5 years as the German country manager, and I was actually fascinated by the whole idea and how it was working, and especially in Germany, because this is like an important place for carpooling, actually.
Excellent. Also, what do we learn? Become a fan, and you might get employed later on. Happened. So, but also, last question: sharing for you is what?
Yeah, sharing for me is. It's not a question of, or it's not a phenomena of the internet age. It's much older, actually. And if you see the idea of carpooling, it started back in the 50s. Yeah, and that's sharing for me.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So, and then last but not least, Michael Fischer from DriveNow. Come and join us. Have you brought something as well?
I brought an old video, yes.
Excellent. Well, I'm also a customer, as I'm all of you, as well. And thank you so much, because otherwise I would have to buy a car and take care of insurance and fuel and something like that. I'll just like say to my husband, like, honey, would you like the Mini or the Mercedes tonight? It's fabulous. So, of course, you have to go through the trail first. With DriveNow, actually youngest part here in this round in 2011. But I think, like, especially in Berlin, like, you see DriveNow cars everywhere, and you're expanding. But, like, what happened 2 years ago?
Well, this idea is pretty new. Maybe you know that DriveNow is a joint venture between BMW and the rental company Sixt. And the reason why they started that was they found out that people buy an iPhone, but they don't buy cars anymore, especially in big cities like Berlin, Hamburg, or Munich. So what they decided was they have to offer something that fits to people in a city, fits to modern lifestyle. There was car sharing before, but it was not as flexible as what we do. Car sharing actually was you had to go to a station, had to get your car, and had to bring it back. So that new idea, which started in 2011 with DriveNow, is you can rent a car at point A and leave it on point B, and in between, you drive, but you don't have to care about anything. You just pay minute-wise. You don't have to care about gas. You don't have to care about insurance. You don't have to care about the parking spot and the cost of the parking spot. Everything is included, and that idea was pretty smart, pretty genius. And since we're just a joint venture between BMW and the rental company Sixt, it is the perfect actually combination for us, because the one side brings the cars and the technique behind it, and the other side brings all the fleet management and the rental knowledge. So and right now we have 250,000 customers after 3 years.
We're going to talk about the technology later. I'm super curious. But of course, first of all, like, how can you top the other stories from those people here, how you get the job at DriveNow?
I don't know whether I can top it. So I worked in PR pretty long before I joined DriveNow, and a friend called me and said, well, there's a job offer from DriveNow, from BMW, for a car rental in Berlin. That could be something for you. So I just read it and said, well, that's really new. That's better than everything I heard before from car sharing. So I just applied for the communication manager in Berlin, which actually was a position for marketing and more for sales. And from year to year, it just shifted actually to a PR position, because right now I have to do so many press demands and so many journalists calling me every day and ask what that system is. So right now I just only work in PR, and we have a new city manager for Berlin.
Excellent. And last question, sharing is for you what?
Well, sharing for us at DriveNow is more about saving money. It's not as altruistic maybe as other sharing schemes, because people don't share the cars, because we share the cars actually as a company with the people. And the people use our cars to save money and to save time and to save hassle. So car sharing is saving.
Finally, and this is the first round. Next round, also what you see here is we have two different approaches to get into a continent or a country. So for instance, we have Mitfahrgelegenheiten or Carpooling.com and DriveNow, who both started in Germany and then reached out to other European countries and also US. At some stage?
Actually, only the US.
Only the
no
US.
European country so far.
That's going to be an interesting story. And then we have Airbnb and Etsy, who did exactly the opposite. So they came from the US and then moved into Europe and also, of course, Germany. So, and that's the interesting point, is like, Germany versus US. What are the differences? What are the difficulties? And of course, because we want to see this positive, what are the opportunities? So let's start with the Germans first. So Tobias, you started in Germany and reaching out into other countries. Like, how did that happen? Was it like strategic, or just like the cars seemed to go in that direction? Or?
Of course, I mean, going international was never a question. It was obvious that we have to make a big network, maybe all over the world, to get a interesting product actually running. It's the same like for Airbnb, I guess. But the strategy to go international was actually quite easy. I mean, we started in Germany, and we had like within a short time actually, user have been starting going cross-border. And then we realized, of course, Austria, Switzerland, that was a quick catch. And then we realized as well there's lots of traffic going to Poland, to France, and to Italy. And then this has been making actually this strategy to internationalize. And that's what we did actually. I mean, we started Austria and Switzerland in 2008, and then in 2010 we really catched up with Spain and with France and Italy and Poland and UK as well. And of course we're gonna go on with this strategy and to try to catch some new markets.
So since you've been there for quite a while, I can, I'm always after stories, so you can, so just like pretend nobody is here and we have a drink, and so like, give me some insights, like how difficult or easy or fun or, interesting is it to, move with the community, because as far as I understood, like your community actually led you the way, with everybody going to Poland, and then you just reached out to expand it to Poland. So is there anything you want to share just with me?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's important to be in the market, and that's what we realized. Currently, we're just based in Munich, so this is our headquarter, and it's the only one, of course. And but we decided to go in different countries and be there with a local office and be closer to the user and get the community more running actually. So that's the insight.
Fantastic. So, well, I'm gonna find my story. But yeah, I mean, it's also, I think it's because like sharing, like the community shared with you informations and you just followed. So it's like giving back. It's very nice. So, Michael, can you tell me a story of opportunity and joy, how it is from move to Germany to the US?
Well, the point is actually, since we're so young, and maybe you don't believe it, we're a small company still, although we belong to big companies, but sometimes we work like a startup. So we have 6 to 8 people here in Berlin, and we have 20 people in Munich, and 3 to 4 in all the other cities. So that's DriveNow. It's not more actually. It's a very lean business. And what we do is we wanted to have processes which we actually have first in Germany. We wanted to grow slowly and sustainable. And understand how the business works. And when we're just settled and know how it works, then we can go to other countries. So the US maybe is the biggest market in that point of view. I think maybe Zipcar. It's is the biggest car sharing company in the world. Started in the US, offering actually the old classical service where you have to bring your car back. And they have millions of customers in the US. So for us, it was just the reason to go to the US, because we saw that is the biggest market. That's why we just chose San Francisco first and offered a full electrical car sharing there because it fits to the city. The city wanted that electrical car sharing, so there are only electrical BMW driving there. But it's difficult. Of course, it's difficult because you have to communicate to each other, and you don't want to lose information in the process between two countries, and that's actually the biggest problem if you expand.
So also you just said the point, the Active E series, if you ever have the chance to catch one here in Berlin, drive it. It drives like a spaceship. I love it. But I can imagine, so what you also just described was that understanding the market and then going into the gap, and just like with the Active.
Absolutely, you have to understand the market in every country you are. which also means you have to have locals who do the business in the market, because that's what we did in Germany. So when you start in Berlin, you come from Berlin because you understand the market. If you're from Munich, you actually can work in Munich because you know how the people think, how the people communicate, and it's always a little different from each city to the other, and it's still a lot more different between countries. So that's why you need locals who understand the market.
Thank you. So, Caroline, the other way around. How did you were hunting for German local people to tell you, how Etsy can go into the market, or what was the strategy?
I think the interesting thing about Etsy is that from almost day one, we were a very international company. We never actually set up an American marketplace. We don't have different websites for different markets. It's just that anyone who comes to Etsy gets the exact same experience. And so from a very, very early point, we had international buyers and sellers, essentially people who are really part of this movement of individuals who are building their small, independent, creative business. And I think what appeals to people about Etsy is that ability to set up a business in your own way, because you can set your own success metrics. It's not about you have to sell X amount of inventory or you have to have a certain price point. It's completely up to the individual. And that ability to say, I want to run my business on Etsy because I want to be able to go to bed at night happy, or because I want to sell at least $1 million worth of goods this year. It's completely up to the seller, and that's something that's universal and works around the world. And that's why we do have buyers and sellers in almost every country on the planet. Also, North Korea is also not a hotspot for us as well. But there came a point when we realized that organic growth is wonderful. We love it, and organic growth is tremendous in markets where we're just blown away that suddenly just a country will just sort of explode. But of course, it comes to a certain point where you need to start to add fuel to the fire. And for us, Germany was a really natural starting point. One reason was, Germany has a very long tradition of handicraft. There's a very strong belief in quality and tradition, and that's something that we identified with tremendously. One of our company values is we value craftsmanship in all that we do. I mean, every single pixel on our website is almost crafted. But also, Berlin really is a do-it-yourself city, and that ethos of a place where creative people can come and set up their own business in their own ways. And another one of our company values is keep it real, which sounds like sort of American marketing hype talk. But for us, really, keep it real is about being honest with ourselves and really practicing what we preach. And we found that sort of the model that a lot of entrepreneurs and artisans in Berlin, it was very, very similar to how we run Etsy as a business. So it was a natural jumping off point. And now we have offices in Dublin, London, Amsterdam, Paris, Berlin, Sydney, Melbourne, and people also in lots of other different places all over the globe.
Excellent. So, but again, what I understand here is like a pattern where you follow your community. So, and then all of a sudden, like if somebody goes to Poland, or you define a market, understand the market, and go in there because there is a community. But also internally, it's like for the team, is there a difference between like Etsy Germany and Etsy US or Etsy Poland or Australia?
I think one of the things that surprises people the most about Etsy is people like to make a lot of assumptions about people being very different all over the world. And my boss did a trip recently to Shenzhen to a lot of our sellers there, and she came back and we looked at the pictures and we realized we probably have a lot in common with those sellers in Shenzhen, China. There's a lot more that connects people than makes them different. The key is really to understand sort of what are the differences in communications, the touch points and the things that inspire people and the things that really start to create customer intent tend to be somewhat universal, but the way to get to that is somewhat different. And that's where it really is important, as was already mentioned, to have local intelligence to help understand that.
Well, that's a really good point about communication, Christopher. As we've seen at the video, especially Airbnb is not about having a couch. You actually also have a communications partner who can tell you all the lovely stories from where they just came from, and like, hey, this is my city, I show you around. That was my experience always when I went in Airbnb, because I did like the full package. Like, can I have your bicycle, and can you show me the way to the next bar, like to the coolest in town, of course. So for Airbnb coming from the US to Germany, communication-wise, was there like little hiccups or something like that? Or
Well, if you grow very quickly, as we did, there are always the occasional operational hiccups. Airbnb is a truly international concept, and that very first booking that Brian and Joe had in their apartment, actually one of the guys was a fellow from India who came to that conference, so I think the first booking was international, and that's how Airbnb spread. It went from country to country. People travel, they travel across borders, and then they bring the concept home with them. So in a sense, when we internationalized operationally, we followed our users, and we followed where people were using the product already and where the community was already thriving. And Germany is a natural fit for that. Germany is the second largest tourism market in terms of travelers in the world, and just short of China, which is slightly bigger in terms of population. I do suspect that China will pull ahead over the next couple of years, but Germany is still a great opportunity for us, and Germans love to travel, and they're very open for other cultures. And for Airbnb, it's obviously about sharing space, because we think access trumps ownership, but it's also about sharing experiences. And I know so many personal stories where I went somewhere and ended up talking to the host for hours on end about the most random topics, or to me, random topics, because it's always great to meet people who have a similar perspective on life, but they're actually doing something totally different than what I'm doing. And that's how kind of Airbnb internationalizes and thinks about internationalization.
I've actually got my secret recipe for my risotto. I've got it through an Airbnb gig in Italy. That was really good. Thank you very much. But for Airbnb, especially going across the world, it also means like you're actually going into the space of somebody else. So how do you manage that in terms of, we were talking about trust, and I'm trying to sneak into our final round in terms of like technical opportunities, like what is like the technical setups to trust is nice when you're like a little short circle, but once you expand, there are like some people out there who won't show you the way to a bar. What is your way to manage that, and also, of course, across cultures and languages and countries?
Right. Trust and safety is one of the absolute core features of what we do, and it's an area that we're always investing in, and will, I don't think, ever stop investing in trust and safety. And we have a ton of features on the website that help guests and hosts get to know each other before they actually have the trip. The review system, the messaging, our verified photography. We have a ton of trust and safety features that our customer support team is kind of actively engaging in, and making sure that we monitor the trust of the platform, the security of our users on both sides. So I don't think we'll ever stop doing that.
And this is again like giving like the loving and giving experience of like sharing your place, that it's also secure, of course. Can you give me a short insight, and then I'll go I also get like a heads up for you guys, because I want to talk tech a little bit now for the final round, to enhance the customer experience. That is a big part of the sharing experience, of course. What are like the kind of things you use to improve the internal management, and also, of course, the external management for your customers?
So one of the things that we believe strongly in, the hospitality of our hosts, and our hosts have the best ideas about how to provide the best hospitality. So what we try to do is to make sure that those ideas are shared. There's a great place for hosts to kind of put in their stories and their best practices, and then we use the things that we get back from the community and put it back out to other hosts who are trying to use the product for the first time and maybe don't know exactly what to do yet. We don't sit in the back room and kind of come up with the best way to do something, but really the individual hosts are the ones who are driving this, and we are facilitating it with our technology and we're using all the technology that we can to build trust and to make sure that it's safe and secure. But ultimately, it's up to the hosts to provide a great experience, and they usually do.
How do you manage your time? I'm always like, this is also a personal question because, you know, I'm like going through like task management things and stuff like that. So what kind of like travel tracker do you use besides Airbnb, of course?
So I don't really use a travel tracker. I try to meet with people in person more than I use email, which is difficult. So instead of meeting in person, we use Skype and Google Hangout to communicate across time zones. Our headquarters in San Francisco, so that's 9 hours away from Germany, which is pretty taxing. So I usually stay up pretty late and my call's pretty late, but I guess that's it's not atypical. And then the rest is standard technology. I don't think there's no secret ingredient that takes everything away from you.
Cool. Tobias, what is your secret sauce tech-wise?
Well, for us, the secret sauce was actually the transaction. When I have a look on the product, especially the last year was an important step for us to place a transaction-based system, because that was a crucial thing for developing new features for the future. Before it was just a blackboard. People adding a lift, searching for a lift. That's it. We never knew who was traveling together, if the car was fully booked or not. And this step opened us loads of possibilities to develop new features around the platform. And if you talk about technology, for us it's really important. Mobile technology, because carpooling is by definition a mobile technology, and therefore it's really important to focus on mobile apps and get everything on the mobile running, because that's the future for us, and there are loads of feature coming to make this happen actually.
Oh, we can be, looking forward in future for mobility technology, but that's also your point with DriveNow, because like that is fully packed with technology, with like the swipe card and stuff like that. Michael, are you tracing, do you know exactly all the time where I am when I drive one of your cars?
No, we're not allowed to. Even if we would like to, we're not allowed to. So what we can do is, or what we do is, we get the position right in the moment when you rent the car. So we know that you rented our car right now, and then we know just the moment and the location where you leave the car. But we don't know what you did in between. We're not allowed to do that, and we wouldn't do it. I mean, that's what you have to trust your customers also. But we need those two positions, of course, also for the app, because everything is application based. That's how our clients find the cars. So just only through the GPS position. And there's so much technique behind it. As you said, it's just how you open the car. That's transmitted by the network, by the cell phone network, to our servers. And there's a communication between the server and the car. When you open the car, you can, if you want, you can get a ride, or you can offer your ride to others through Flink. It's another ride-sharing company. In the car, and if there are people who are looking for a ride from point A to point B, it's just shoot it in your car and you see it on the screen. There's just so many things actually, which is mobile based. We have a call center, and this call center actually, I mean, it's not unemployed, but people don't really call anymore. They don't call to get a car, so they use the mobile device. And even if they have a problem, they just ask through Twitter or through Facebook. They communicate with us through those channels and not through the telephone anymore.
Good point, Caroline. Are you actually talking on the phone with customers? Do people call you? Or is it like everything on Twitter, Skype, or text messaging?
We actually, surprisingly, only just opened up a call center right before Christmas for our sellers, because sometimes we realized our sellers had really, really urgent things and they needed to be able to speak to somebody. But I think in terms of technology, for us, of course, mobile is tremendously important. Like a lot of other technology companies, we don't say we have a mobile team. Every single one of our mobile teams is mobile, because for our buyers, it's just so incredibly important to be able to make those purchases wherever they want and to discover things whenever they're and wherever they are. For our sellers, I think from a technology perspective, it's actually our Teams platform, which is just essentially a community platform where our sellers are allowed to meet or are allowed to connect with each other and share knowledge. In fact, the captain of our Berlin Street team is here tonight, and you can ask her questions about what's community in action. And I think internally for us, probably one of the technological lifebloods of Etsy, especially because we do have employees all over the world, is IRC. It's really old school, but it's amazing for communication between the different teams, and we also have a lot of really funny, great bots that we build as well. So for example, you can give people pluses, and during the Olympics there were lots of little commands that you could type in to see how many medals each country had. And so IRC, even though it's something that feels incredibly technical and dorky, it's actually something that's really joyful and fun and is really a core part of the Etsy employee experience.
Excellent. Long live ISC. I have to start my chat again. Okay, well, that was the round. Thank you very much to all of you to come here and sitting under the sunlight for half an hour. Caroline, Christopher, Tobias, Michael, thank you very much. Please put your hands together for this fabulous panel.